The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
You are comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government.
I am back. You are comfortably zoned in Alameda, California, and I've got an Alamedan as a guest. Jerry Feitelberg, podcaster, pharmacist, journalist, Renaissance man, all those things. How are you, sir?
Oh, nice compliments. I'm feeling great this morning. Was at the A's game last night, and they took apart Luis Severino and the Yankees, and they beat them 8-2. And if we're doing a little baseball, the A's are 3.5 games behind the Astros for first place in the West, and 3.5 games behind the Yankees for the first wild card slot.
I must admit, about a week and a half, right before the trade deadline, I suggested that this wasn't going to be their year. Their pitching staff has been literally decimated from top to bottom over the course of the year. And recently, Manaea goes on the DL, probably out for the year. And I thought they're never going to come back from this. They're patching it up with Jackson,
Jackson,
Hill, and all these guys over the course of the year. I didn't think they had it in them, and I was wrong. I've been watching them very carefully. Piscotty, for instance, is turning into a solid Major League Baseball player, not just a sentimental favorite in a small town, and I put that in quotes. The A's are getting notice. Last night's game was terrific. They're kicking ass, and it's exciting for all of us in the Bay Area. For you in particular, they've been your team for a long time now, so I'm happy for you.
Yeah, it's good to have this happen. If you go back to 2014, they had the best record in baseball until about the 1st of August, and then they traded Cespedes to the Red Sox for John Lester, and everything went south after that. And it's been south for 3 years until now.
You know, if you look back on that, though, John Lester was one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball at the time.
Yeah.
So,
and he took the Cubs to a World Championship in 2016, no question about it. And the Cubs are
one of those performers that, like some guys can't play in New York, some guys won't play in Oakland. Lester was that way. Holiday was that way. There's something about it that hopefully it's all going to be cleared up when they put the shovel in the ground to build the ballpark. And
yeah, well, first of all, Lester would have stayed in Oakland, but they didn't have the money to pay him. So he got a king's ransom to go to Chicago. And Theo Epstein, who was with Boston when he signed as a young player, is now running the show in Chicago, and they delivered a boatload of money to him. Matt Holliday just couldn't believe the cold air and how the ball dies out and doesn't go out of the park. The guys hit it a ton, and it would get out to the 388 mark, and it would just collapse, and the catches were made, and the guys were put out. Stanton hit one last night that would have been a home run anywhere, but it died. And they go back to the dugout shaking their head. They can't believe what happened to them. So that's one of the things that happens in Oakland.
But
now,
it's the same ballpark for both teams.
Yeah, Oh, yeah. So, well, it was kind of interesting last night. As you know, last night they honored 6 or 7 of the great legends of the Oakland A's. The A's under Dave Kaval are trying to reconnect their history and bring back to the fans that this club has a long history of great players. And they brought the players back. They included Dave Stewart, Raleigh Fingers, Reggie Jackson, Ricky Henderson, and Dennis Eckersley. And Dennis Eckersley, you know, he got the crowd going. He says, "I'm from Fremont," and he pointed where his folks used to sit. He says, "I loved playing here." Ricky was from Oakland. Dave Stewart was from Oakland. As kids, they used to sneak into the Coliseum to play the games, and they loved here. But Eckersley said, this team is doing so well. It's so magical, and it's going to be so great. Put the shovels in the ground now. Get the stadium built. So everyone knows that the club needs a stadium. The problem is, when are they going to announce where it's going to be? And according to Dave Kaval, it's not going to be built before 2023. And the unsettling part about that is that most of the players will be gone by that time. So they have to rebuild the club again.
Ooh. Why is it, I know in the one location with the school district, there was a lot of ecological problems that caused it potentially to take 6 years to be built. But why would it take that long to be built if they built it simply in the parking lot of the Coliseum, the existing parking lot? They built the stadium, and then, like other cities have done, when the stadium was complete, they tear down the other one and make that a parking lot.
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
They built Shea Stadium in 15 minutes.
Yeah, you're correct in the assessment. They do not have to do an environmental impact report at the Coliseum Stadium. We're at the site. They could do it. They could build to make it a destination with shops and what have you. Put some office buildings in there. Whatever they have to do to bring people in, it can be done right there. And with the
BART is already there. The freeway access is already there. What they have to do to bring things in is have a good ball team, combine that with a brand new gem of a stadium, and you got something. It's not all that complicated. You don't need restaurants. That could come later, or it doesn't necessarily have to come. Or get it started on Jack London Square near the water, so it looks over the stadium in San Francisco, and that would be an attraction. And if you can't get people there, if it's going to clog up the streets, then get a shuttle system. Be creative, for Christ's sake. It can be done. But I had an old mentor selling insurance years ago. Won't even mention his name. He said, do something, even if it's wrong.
Well, the thing the thing with the one over at the Howard Terminal is that they do have to do an environmental impact report, and that will take some time. So you're absolutely correct. The Coliseum site is ready to go, and the Warriors have their last season here at Oracle Arena. They're going to be done. If they win the championship, it will be June of 2019. The Raiders have this year and next year, but with the potential of a lawsuit against them filed by the city of Oakland, the Raiders say, if you file a suit, we're going to leave at the end of this year. And that may be a good thing, because if they leave, they can start the construction sooner. So you want to go to the Raiders? Go. It would be better for Oakland, and don't let the door hit you in the ass as you leave town.
If you want to leave for the second time, I mean, the fans have already remarried the first wife. Now, that generally doesn't work out.
You got it. Got it. I don't know how the Raiders are selling tickets. I know that they've got a hardcore Raider nation, and a lot of the people are going to follow them down to Las Vegas. But if I were a Raider fan and they want to leave, see you later, buddy. You're not going to get another dime from me.
Well, that said, the city of Oakland, the county of Alameda, has had no success in dealing with any of their franchises historically. No matter who the mayor was, no matter what the good intentions of the mayors have been, or the mayors that blatantly disregarded the sports. Jerry Brown was very much a hindrance to getting things done. Remember, this is a stadium that should have not been destroyed in the first place. They gave in to the Raiders, the city and county did, when they came back from L.A., and they put up that monstrosity that ruined it from being a halfway decent ballpark and somewhat charming. To be honest with you, it was still a cookie cutter, but it had, with the open space in center field, you could see the hills of Berkeley. It was kind of cool.
It was. I agree with you. It was nice to look out there and see the hills. It was a nice setting, and it always was a family park, and it was affordable. And of course, the A's under Walter Haas, Walter being a hometown guy, and he wanted to keep the team in Oakland, and people appreciated that the fact that he was from the Bay Area, and of course, Levi Strauss is so well known around the world. But there was a different atmosphere in those days. And if you recall, after the '95 season, Walter Haas passed away, and the family had to sell the team because of tax problems, and they got two guys in, Schott and Hoffman, and I think the Raiders came back, and their first season was in '95, and they were clamoring for more seating. Al Davis wanted at least 60,000 seats. And the city and county capitulated in the agreement, and they built the Mount Davis, which is an absolute monstrosity. They took the bleacher seats where the fans could literally talk to Dave Henderson, Ricky Henderson, and Jose Canseco in the outfield, and they raised it, and so it's much higher and further away from the field. The third or the fourth deck, whatever it is way the hell out in center field. You have a better view of downtown San Francisco than you do of the playing field. You're so far away. So it lost the intimacy there. And, of course, now it's tarped, and neither the Raiders or the A's use that space. The only time it was open, I think, was for the free game, when the A's had the free game on April 17th. But it just hasn't worked out. It was a mistake, plain and simple, and it was a costly mistake that the city and county are still paying for.
What do you predict is going to happen?
In my mind, and I can't read Dave Cavill's mind, and maybe I'll go over there some Tuesday and talk to him. I would like to see them build in the current location. I like it for BART. I like it for the accessibility of the freeway, and I think something can be done. People have problems with the neighborhood, but, what can I tell you?
Well, there is no neighborhood. You just drive in and out.
Well, if you go over on
BART station.
Yeah, where the BART station is, on the other side of the BART station is East Oakland, and there are some problems with that. But things are changing in the demographics, because as Silicon Valley continues to hire more and more people, they have to live somewhere. And a lot of the tech businesses that are in San Francisco, the housing costs are so outrageous in San Francisco that the techies are making Oakland the new Brooklyn. And that what happened in New York is that Brooklyn became gentrified. It's regaining a lot of its luster as more and more middle-class families move in. And that is happening to Oakland. Maybe not as dramatic yet, but as I said, as the tech industry continues to grow, Facebook is putting in a huge facility in San Francisco so that their employees don't have to travel down to Menlo Park. I think that other companies, Square and Twitter, are expanding. More employees are coming in. They have to live somewhere. Oakland is good, easily accessible by BART, bus, ferry. So they'll be living in Oakland because housing costs are less in Oakland, and that will transform these neighborhoods, as is happening.
Hey, remember, folks, if you're listening, we're talking to you in 2018, and it's September, and the bubble hasn't yet burst. So that if you're playing this back in a few months, a few years, you may smile to yourself and say, remember when the housing crisis, when a $30,000 house was selling for, $1 million, and now a $30,000 house is selling for, $30,000. That could happen.
It might happen. I don't foresee it unless we have unless the current administration in Washington takes us into a deep depression, which is possible.
Well, there's two types of depression. Okay. You've already depressed the fuck out of me.
Well, the charade that's going on in Congress, and we discussed this before we went on the air, with the confirmation hearings for Judge Kavanaugh, the whole thing is a charade. There is no way that today I think the hearings are going to conclude, and I know the Democrats are giving him some crap right now.
They're doing more than that. They are really growing some hair where the sun don't shine. I'm very proud of these guys.
I'm glad that they're doing it, but the reality is...
And gals, Dianne Feinstein, who sadly passed away a long time ago, they didn't tell her. They woke her up, and she's showing some spine, and I really appreciate that in the Democratic Party. Because
but what's the reality? The Republicans have the vote, and he's going to come out of committee, and unless there's something shocking going on, it will be 50-49 votes for confirmation because Kyle was sworn in, so it might be 51-49. They would need 3 Republicans to stand up and
I understand, but they're saying things that are inspiring people, Republicans perhaps, to cross over on this. They're talking to him in direct terms about Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
And there was one senator this morning that actually called him on the fact that when he was in the Bush administration, he was receiving stolen information, and they have the emails, and that's going to come out big. So I wouldn't count his confirmation, count the chickens before they're hatched on that one, but 6 senators said that they will disregard anything that happens to them. You can throw us out if that's what it comes to.
What is amazing is the whole thing.
That was dramatic. That was very dramatic. It was the first time.
Cory Booker said, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Do what you want." But they were going to release these confidential records, which is, I don't think there's a law against it, but it's a Senate tradition. So do whatever they want. But the problem is that they had documents. They got 42,000 documents a few hours before the hearing started yesterday, and they're getting information out of that, and they're still hiding hundreds of thousands of documents. And the thing is, they're trying to hide something. The appearance is they're trying to hide something. And you know that perception is reality. If people perceive that they're trying to hide something, they are hiding something. And there's no question about it in my mind that Trump wants this guy very badly on the Supreme Court to protect his story.
Because he's a guy who has said that presidents cannot be not only prosecuted, they can't be investigated. This guy is very, very dangerous. Besides, you know my opinion, Roe v. Wade, it sets back humanity, let alone womanhood.
Sure.
So it's very interesting times we're living in, both baseball and CNN. I go back and forth between the baseball station, CNN, and my pipe.
Well, I have to tell you, on Monday I had a gentleman sitting next to me on my right. He owns a couple of radio stations down in the Central Valley, and he was a big Trump supporter. So I learned, my mother told me many, many years ago, to say, if you don't really want to get into something with someone, to say, that's nice. And I kept saying, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice. And I always say that's nice, instead of saying bullshit. So that's my lessons from charm school.
Oh, okay. Well, I never went to charm school, and I never had a grandmother who was that enlightened and had to be charming and passed on things. I have no lever, I have no filter, I can't just say nothing. I can't say, that's nice. I have to say, what? But that's what makes you the nice gentleman that you are, and I appreciate your time.
Well, I love doing these things with you, Ralph. It's interesting. We have a good time. You've got great baseball knowledge. And your other podcasts with guys like Peter Gollenbach, Alan Blumkin, Ron Rabinowitz up in Minneapolis. You have a broad...
You can't name them all. I have a crew of some tremendously communicative, bright people and we all share this. We all share a passion.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about the former players, guys like Skip Lockwood, Wes Stock. We had Wes Stock on. Lenny Randall, who's terrific. I enjoy
Absolutely.
And
we have Mark Littell, and we have Hal Bach, who wrote sports in New York for the Associated Press for like 43 years. I've got contributors like Bill Kashatis, David Finoli, who represent Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Alan Blumkin.
You have something going here that's really terrific contributors. It is really setting the standards, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, for talk radio on the Internet. We have no real restrictions. We're not pleasing anybody on a commercial basis. We're not saying the things that we have to say, quote, have to say. We don't have to say a damn thing except what we want to say. And we have opinions without being opinionated.
Yep, that's true. And by the way, last night at the A's ceremony, Nancy Finley was in the building. Our friend Nancy
Oh yeah,
Finley. We couldn't find her. I think she was at the ceremony with the Legends that was out in the East Side Club, which is way on the other, about 3 miles away from home plate on the other side. And it was just a bit too far for me to go. I got a little problem on my ankle, so I didn't want to go over there. But our dear friend Len Shapiro was there last night, and Len was looking for her, and Len was on my right last night until about the 6th inning, then he went home. And he was enjoying what's going on with the A's. And, of course, he has a long connection with the Finley family because he worked for the California Golden Seals way back when in the 70s. And he is one of the most knowledgeable mavens.
Well, why don't you get him on the podcast? We'd love to have him.
Okay, I'll contact Len and we'll do it. We'll be great.
Set it up for any time. I'm here 24/7. You know me.
Yeah, I sent you a text or a message at 5 a.m. in the morning yesterday, and I got a response.
At 5 a.m. in the morning.
I have
my
excuse.
habits are really where I don't sleep. I just collapse. I wake up, the TV's going, that sort of stuff. But
I figured out how to do that. I have a timer on the TV. I was watching last night. I came home and I instead of watching the local news, I turned on MSNBC. I was watching Brian Williams for the 11th hour, and then All In with Chris Hayes, which went on at midnight. And I set it for 90 minutes, and I didn't make it for more than 30. I fell asleep. When I woke up, I turned it off. I woke up about 1 o'clock. It was still going. No, I think I turned it off before I went to bed. But it would have gone off automatically. But I wanted.
Well, I'm sure I make up for it with naps, and I don't know if you've tried that yet.
Oh, I conk out during the day too.
Yeah, well, it's really rejuvenating. You get up and then you're looking for the next nap. You have something to look forward to.
Well, the A's have about 22 games left. I think they got 9 or 10 or 12 at home. They play the Rangers this week, then they go on the road to Baltimore and Tampa Bay, and our friend Peter Golenbach is going to be at the 3 games when the A's are in town. And the Tampa Bay Rays are a success story this year, too. A team
absolutely. And the A's are doing what the Rays have been doing with their pitching staff. They're using that. Yeah. What do they call it? They're openers. They're not starters.
They're openers. They pitch 1 inning and then they bring the bullpen guys in. Now the A's opened a couple games with Liam Hendricks, and he's good for one. He was hurt, then he went down. They DFA'd him, then he cleared waivers. He went back to Nashville. They brought him back, and he's been pretty effective doing his opening the first inning of the game. And they brought in Daniel Mengden, and in two of the games he was brought in, he pitched 4 innings very effectively. And that's what the A's want, to get to the 5th or 6th inning, and their bullpen is lights out. They are dynamite. Last night, unfortunately, I think they gave up 2 hits to the Yankees in the final, the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. But
well, you know I'm a Met fan, so I hope you're enjoying the good, bad, and ugly of Mr. Familia.
He scares me someday. The other day on Monday, he got the first 2 outs in an inning. Then he walked 2 guys, and it was a 6-3 game. And one swing of the bat could have tied it, but he was able to get out of the jam. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, he scares me. But Lou Trevino pitched a good inning last night, 1-2-3 inning. And I forgot who closed it off last night. It wasn't Trinan. It was one of the other relievers. But
yeah, they really worked Trinan hard. I hope he has some stuff left down the stretch. He hasn't been hurt at all.
No, he's been terrific. He's got 36 saves and 39 chances, so that is outstanding. And he's been so good. So has Trevino. So has been even Familia.
Oh, let's talk about the center fielder that seized the moment.
Ramon Laureano, 24-year-old kid from the Dominican Republic, came to the A's in a trade that no one even heard of with the Houston Astros last year. The kid entered the game hitting .293. He had 2 doubles last night. Terrific fielder, defensive fielder with a fantastic
cannon for an arm.
I think he's got 3 assists so far in the short time that he's been in center field. Terrific. And they also, for a guy they got in the Yankee trade for Sonny Gray was Dustin Fowler. Of course, he started off. He was slow starting off. They sent him down to Nashville, and he played very, very well. But you know what happens when the doors open and another guy comes in, and he becomes
absolutely. And this guy's Fowler is fast. This guy's faster.
He's fast.
Fowler's a pretty good center fielder. This guy's better, and this guy has a much better arm. Fowler be gone. That's the way.
Yeah, he'll be trade bait. He'll go in a package. And I was very, very disappointed that the A's didn't go after Gio Gonzalez when he was available.
Me too. Yeah.
Gio went to the Brewers, and the A's didn't have a left-handed starter. Now, Brett Anderson, he should be back this week, though. He's coming off the DL, hopefully. But in my mind, I would rather have Gio over Brett Anderson any time. So that was something that they could have done to help shore up the pitching department. And he would have been eligible for the World Series because it happened before the September 1st deadline.
What do you think the over and under is on Brett Anderson going back on the DL? Like, would you say 1 start, 2 starts, or 3 starts?
I'm going to go 3 starts. I hope he can go 3 starts. And
okay, I'll go 2.
We'll see how that plays out.
Because both he and Cahill, bless their soul, I'm sure they're trying as hard as anyone. But come on already, you know.
What I don't understand is how Cahill can be so good at the Coliseum and then stink on the road. He's so good, but that's baseball. But the sad news out of baseball is about Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, that is. He's going to need Tommy John surgery.
And when he has the Tommy John, it's going to take him out for a year. He won't be able to hit either as he's recovering. And his hitting is pretty good. So that's a decision.
If he doesn't get Tommy John surgery, can he still go on hitting?
Yeah, he had 4 hits last night, including 2 home runs. He was 4 for 4 last night.
Now, what do you think? Is he a long term? If you had to go for one or the other, and maybe at this point it's being greedy, they ask him to do both jobs. Is he a better long term?
If you recall, Kyle Seager, Kyle Seager, or Corey Seager, one of them. The Dodgers shortstop had Tommy John surgery. He threw his throwing out route. So he's going to, if Ohtani he may DH so he doesn't have to field, but if he has to play in the outfield, he won't be able to throw. So I think that they're going to have to do the surgery to correct that, because if he may not be a full-time DH, they may want him as a position player. Who knows? And they'll make
How long is Pujols? How many years left on his contract?
Pujols?
Yeah, because he's the DH. And
I think he's got 4 more years. 4 more.
Yeah, that was a horrible signing.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what.
It's a tragedy. I just watched the Mark Fidrich documentary.
Yeah, another tragedy.
Speaking of tragedies, both his career and his life.
Yeah, he had that accident where he was fixing a car and the thing fell on him.
Right.
I'll tell you. But his arm went, and then his life went. He was just star-crossed, just like Tony Conigliaro. Yeah,
absolutely. Both Coniglieros are no longer with us.
Did Billy pass away?
I think Billy's gone. If I'm not mistaken, both of them have passed, and what a shining light he was.
Well, Tony would be in his 70s if he survived. He came up, and he was in 21 or 22 when the accident happened, and he led the league in home runs. Of course, it was 32. That's because the mound was a lot higher at that. It was a few inches higher than it is now. That was in the Bob Gibson era when they had Gibby had an ERA of 1.12 for a whole season, and then they lowered the mound.
Changed the pitching mound the next year.
Yeah.
68.
Yeah, so 67 was still higher.
Did you happen to catch Reggie Jackson last night?
Reggie unfurled his A's cap, and Reggie is a difficult personality, but I think he enjoyed winning the 3 championships with the A's and 2 with the Yankees, and he was quite an athlete.
He did, but I remember I'm listening to him, and he was talking about the trade to Baltimore, and it looked like he was still in shock from that. He said, "Boy, I just don't know why that went down." And
all those things, and we've discussed it with Nancy over the years. Charlie Finley saw free agency coming, and he didn't know how he was going to retain his players. And in 1976, he traded, Joe Rudy and Raleigh Fingers to the Red Sox, and he traded Vida Blue to the Yankees.
Do you remember them suiting up for the Red Sox? They were at a TV game, and I saw them in uniform, and Kuhn pulled it back.
And he said he voided the trade. Get him out of uniform, come back to Oakland.
Right, but I remember seeing that on TV, and they looked very strange in Red Sox uniforms.
Yeah, that happens. That was like Willie Mays putting on a Mets uniform, or Hank Aaron wearing a Brewers uniform.
Absolutely. Just not what you expect to see. I remember Sports Illustrated every spring had a picture article about all the guys who have been traded, and I remember seeing Clete Boyer in a Brave uniform for the first time, and Bill Robinson in a Yankee uniform in that article, and it's just not right. Let's to paraphrase a terrific comedian.
Yeah, it's not right. But the possibility of a player staying with one club for his entire career just doesn't happen anymore. Mike Piazza went from the Dodgers to the Marlins and to the Mets, and he finished up with the A's. And so many players play for 4 or 5 clubs now. And guys like Edwin Jackson and Octavio Dotel pitched for 12 or 13 clubs. Unbelievable. Never would have happened.
You're getting the best streak of Edwin Jackson's history of his lifetime. It's terrific. Some about the air in Oakland for pitchers.
It's that night air. The ball does not carry well. It's the pitcher's best friend. The two things, the pitcher's best friend, the double play and Oakland Coliseum.
And a greenie now and then, and a good chemist. Everybody makes friends differently. But there you go. Anything that's coming up that you're going to predict for this coming week with the A's? You're always on Nostradamus. I go back to LaCroix, but
that was a little. I guess they were thinking the same way I was thinking when they did that. That was a nice bit of serendipity for me. Now the A's, look at the A's. They've won 84 games. They have 22 left. It's entirely possible if they win. They could win 16 of the 22 and finish the season with 100 victories. 84 and 16 is still 100. And it's entirely possible that they're going to finish with at least 95. They have three.
It's probable if they split, they're going to win 94, 95 games.
Right. Now let me see who's on there. Let me pull out my schedule if I still have it. And here it is. And we can do the analysis right here.
All right.
They play 3 with the Rangers now this weekend. They're off today. They have 3 with the Rangers. And the Rangers have no pitching, but they have hitting, so you have to be careful with them. But if they take 2 out of 3 from the Rangers, that will be good. They go on the road to Baltimore and Tampa Bay, and it's entirely conceivable that they could take 5 out of 6 on the trip, certainly 4 out of 6. Baltimore is terrible this year. Then they finish the season where they have 6 with the Angels, 3 with Minnesota, and 3 with Seattle. So that's what, 3, 6, 9, 12. They can win if they win. So if they take 2 out of 3 from Texas and 4 out of 6 from Baltimore, that's 6 out of 9, and they just split the last 12 games. That gives them 12 wins. That gives them 96 for the season, and that's just being modest.
All right. Hey, if they don't win another game, they've already won more games than they won last year, and they gave us one hell of a thrill.
What a terrific season. What a terrific
season.
And it was so great on Monday when they had 40,549 fans in the ballpark. It had a playoff atmosphere. And I had a laugh after the game as we're leaving the game, and it happened last night with the obnoxious, and they are obnoxious, Yankee fans thought that they had won the series and were trying to gloat over the A's with their chants. I said, these guys don't know that the Yankees lost. They're living in a dream world. But that's part of baseball. And fortunately, the fans and most of the fans in Oakland are good-natured and let them get away with it. And there was no physical confrontations.
Nice to know that it all turned out well, and you got home. You never get in the middle of anything like that.
No. By the time I leave, the parking lot's empty.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Jerry.
It's wonderful talking baseball with you, Ralph.
And life with you. I want to ask you the one question that I'm going to be asking everybody who guests on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network from here on in. Not from here on in, for the next week or so. I want to know your gut feeling. Who wrote that New York Times op-ed?
That's a good question. There was a reference in there to something that Pence knew, and I had a feeling it might be someone from Indiana who knew Pence a little bit better. And I have a feeling, and some people are speculating, that it was Dan Coates.
Dan Coates, not to be confused with Jim Coates, who was a pitcher with the Yankees.
Or Hawk Harrelson, who lives in Indiana. And I'd like to say congratulations to Hawk, who's going to be retiring from broadcasting. He was a great player, great athlete. He was a great golfer as well as a player.
Oh, great golfer. As good
former
as
MVP.
Go ahead.
He's a former MVP. He was in 1968. He was the MVP when he was with the Red Sox. And he wears proudly his AL championship ring that he got with the Red Sox in 1967. And he got to the Red Sox purely on serendipity because he had a dispute with Charlie Finley, and Finley said, "See you later," cut him from the team, and he ended up with Boston. Not bad.
Right. Not bad at all. I remember that 67 team like it was yesterday.
Yep.
Dick Williams managing it, and Tony Koenig again, and wow.
Yeah, they had George Scott.
And they had Jake Brown was the second baseman. He was a one-year wonder, but what a year he had.
Wasn't Rico Petrocelli was the shortstop. Jim Lonborg was one of the pitchers. Jose Santiago was another one. And I forget who was out in the outfield. I think Reggie Smith was out in the outfield. Can't remember them all, but they came from 9th place the year before, 1966, and they won the pennant. And one of the they had Boomer Scott at first base, and I remember the Red Sox. I don't know if it was 66 or 67. Scott hit a home run off of Whitey Ford that traveled 600 feet in Yankee Stadium. And that was the end. That was the end of Whitey Ford's career. He said, "That's it. If these guys can kill me, I'm going to give it up."
That very home run made him decide to quit.
Yep.
So, just for you baseball fans, there was a Yankee-Red Sox rivalry even back then.
All the time. And in those days, the Yankees ate the Red Sox lunch.
I remember the expression, it's not a rivalry between the hammer and the nail.
Yeah, right.
The
hammer and the Red Sox were the nail.
Right.
But the worm has turned, so to speak, and it all changed in 2004. You remember 2003, they were 3-3 in the playoffs, and then Aaron Boone hits the home run off of Tim Wakefield, and as soon as the ball was hit, I turned off the TV, and I said, I can't watch this anymore. But redemption occurred in 2004 when the greatest choke in playoff history, in baseball playoff history, when the Yankees had a 3-0 advantage in a best-of-7, and the Red Sox won the next 4 games. Biggest choke ever.
Yes.
And then they went on to beat the Cardinals in the playoffs for their first championship in '86, and they won 2 more. And there's a possibility that they could win their 4th World Series title this century. So that's magnificent.
Now the A's play the Red Sox. Who you rooting for at this point?
Well, when I was getting paid by the A's in the '90s, and the Red Sox would come to town, I would root for the A's because.
Yeah, but now you're not being paid by either organization, and let's face it, just your heart. You're ruled now.
My heart's with the Red Sox all the time. I like to see the A's well. A's do well, but when they play the Red Sox, I want the Red Sox to win. That's all.
Well, you're being conflicted as much like I am with the Mets and the Giants, who just played a terrific series with each other.
Yeah, they did. And, of course, the Giants are having their problems with Colorado. And it's a loss. They're doing better than they did last year.
Well, they punted. Getting rid of McCutchen, they punted. But
by the way, McCutchen hasn't gotten off to a good start with the Yankees. And he misplayed.
No, but what a play he made again. I don't know if you were – I watched the A's play the Yankees yesterday. And McCutchen fools Lowry by going back for a fly ball that was over his head, and he knew it, but he didn't head back for it until he kept Lowry at bay on the bases. And
he did that, but at the same time, that ball was catchable. He should have caught that ball because it didn't hit. If he went straight back on it, he would have caught it, and Davis wouldn't have had the double.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, it was a catchable ball.
The stadium holding in. He probably thought the thing was long gone. And
it appeared that way. That's why he deked him out on it. But we all thought he could have caught it. We were surprised that he didn't.
Well, I thought TV announcers were going, wow, that's a big league play. That's a great play.
It kept him from scoring. But he scored anyway.
Yeah, other than that,
Did you ever?
But if he could have caught it, that's true.
I have never seen an inning in the first inning. The first inning, the Yankees could have blown the game open. They had the bases loaded with 2 out, and Gary Sanchez is up. And if Sanchez did anything, if he homered, it would have been 4-0. But Fires got him out, and they were able to score 4 times, we scored 4 times, 3 times, 4, I forgot already. But in the first inning, I had never seen an inning with 2 pass balls and 2 wild pitches, and the 2 wild pitches and the 2 pass balls allowed a couple runs to score. It was unbelievable. I had never seen that in my entire life. So you never know.
That was the worst display of catching I'd ever seen. I mean,
and the rap on Gary Sanchez is that he's a poor defensive catcher. And
but there's 2 things. The difference between a wild pitch, and I haven't talked to the official scorer for that game, is Michael Duca. And
our good friend Michael.
I'm going to speak with him later in the day. And is it a pass ball if the pitcher crosses you up in such a way that you can't get the glove in the right position?
Well, it took him a long time to rule on that. Ask him why it took him so long. He must have reviewed it several times before he gave the ruling on one of the
Right. I can't wait to talk to him. I'm going to talk to Michael later in the day, and hopefully that interview will be attached to this one, and it'll be published tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, Jerry. I enjoy your company.
One last thing before we go. At the dinner table last night, I had a chance to say hello to an old friend, John Sterling, who is the voice of the Yankees, the radio voice of the Yankees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I always say hello to John when the Yankees come to town. Very gracious man, very good broadcaster, and he's a good person too. And he works with one of the few women that do broadcasting baseball, Susie Waldman.
I know. I listen to them, and I've got this at-bat package through MLB. And for $20 a year, I listen to every radio game. I have the potential. I don't listen to all of them, but I listen to the Mets for sure. And the Yankees when they're not on. And they're charming together. It's a different kind of experience listening to those two.
I know that Yankee haters go up the wall when John does his signature when the Yankees win the game. He does the Harry Carey impression. Harry used to say the Cubs win, and John does it with the Yankees. The Yankees win, and he expands it.
I'll tell you why I like Susan Waldman. It doesn't matter what she does, what she says for the rest of her life. She arranged with Carmen Berra to bury the hatchet, and not in Steinbrenner's neck, but bury the hatchet so Yogi could reunite and the Yankees could have him around in his final years. So
and that was appropriate. That was appropriate. Yogi is one of the greatest Yankees ever, and he deserves that spot. It was well earned. He was without question not only one of my favorite Yankee players, and I only had one or two, but he was one of the most beloved baseball players in the history of baseball.
Oh, absolutely. And how much of his image was that of Joe Garagiola creating him? Notwithstanding, he could say some things that he was the master of malaprop. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah. You know, when you get to the fork in the road, take it.
Yeah, right. I always say when you get to the fork in the road, don't take it. Yogi was wrong.
One of the great things that was said about Yogi when Carmen said to him, Yogi, you were born in St. Louis. You live in New Jersey, but you played baseball in New York. He said, when you die, where do you want to be buried? Yogi said, surprise me.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
On that note, Jerry, thank you again for all of your contributions, and
I appreciate
thank you for your friendship. I appreciate chatting with you.
Okay, you stay well, and we'll do it again next week.
Beautiful. See you then. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hang loose. We're going to have Michael Duca. Michael Duca, official scorer, going to talk official scoring and Giant baseball. So we go from the A's to the Giants. We may throw a little life in there, too, like talking life with Jerry, a man of distinction. How about that?
Here you go.
Well, everybody, you heard that. I thought you hung up, Jerry. I didn't mean to talk about you behind your back or anything.
No.
Man of distinction. Do you like that? Pharmacist of the Year in California, 1995.
I can tell you that I was blessed. I was blessed to have a great education, and it was through the public schools. I went to the oldest public school in this country, the Boston Latin School, established in 1635. In 17 years from now, it's going to celebrate its 400th year of existence in this country. And then I had the good fortune to get an undergraduate degree at Bates College in Lewiston, Maine, and then my pharmacy degree from Northeastern University. And one of the things that no one can ever take away from you is your education. And that's why reading is so important, and I appreciate every time we do a program, you end it with asking people to give books to a library, your older books, or to the Head Start program.
Head Start, every time. Get older books, get new books, get gently used, and bring them down there and let kids read, let them get an imagination, let them take their noses out of the devices. And
you hit the key word.
How about that?
You hit the key word, imagination. And you and I lived in an era where we listened to radio. We had radio programs, and we would visualize from the radio descriptions the Lone Ranger, Superman, whoever else was on radio. Broken Arrow, I remember that, on radio. These radio programs, Jack Armstrong. And then they had other programs like Lux Radio Theater, Adventures by Morse. There are so many things that you didn't see it, and that you had to visualize it with the words that were being spoken to you in your mind. And it did stretch your imagination. So the great Fred Allen once defined radio as theater of the mind and television theater of the mindless. And keep that in mind.
Beautiful.
It was beautiful. And I think that we have kids. They have kids. If you get them reading, they can just become anything they want as they grow up. And I think we have a great university, great high schools, great universities, and I hate it when the public can't spend money on educating our children. It's terrible.
Well, feeding them lunches, for Christ's sake.
Absolutely. We find money to build atomic weapons that we don't need, to build have a space force as proposed by Trump that we don't need, and appropriate money for that. But teachers can't get money. The teachers in Oklahoma and had to go on strike, and some of these or threatened strikes in order to get some semblance of money. Why don't we want to pay our teachers? They are responsible for building the minds of the future. I don't understand it.
Well, absolutely. We agree, Jerry. Be well, my friend. Thank you again.
Okay. Talk to you next week. Adios.
Talk next week. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with me and Michael Duca. Wow. Official scorer, Renaissance man, author, announcer, podcaster. He's the man. Michael, how are you?
Well, it's just kind of what you have to do to earn a living in the modern day, my friend.
Modern day.
Hardly anybody has the luxury
I think you
of
earned
being
your
just one
yearly.
thing.
You earned your yearly salary last night. You were the official scorer. Game I watched on television, the Yankees and the A's, and you were given what I believe, we haven't talked about this, the most challenging game you ever scored. Was that correct?
I don't know if I'd go that far because, I've had some plays that were pretty divisive, and I know what you're referring to. You can bring that out in a moment, but I will tell you that within the press box itself, there were no qualms about any of the calls that I had to make. But the bottom of the first inning, Yankees battery had a rough time of it.
Right. They weren't on the same page, and I asked...
I'm not sure they were on the same gravity system.
Right. In the same universe. I asked, rhetorically, the key question about official scoring, and I asked Jerry Feitelberg this in an interview. We were referring to your game, and I told him you'd be coming on and as a follow-up. And my question is this. The difference between a pass ball and a wild pitch is there's such a fine line, and there are so many things. If a catcher is crossed up by a pitcher, and it appears that, wow, he didn't block it, he didn't get to it, this, that, and the other, that appears to be an obvious pass ball. But it could be a wild pitch if he crossed the catcher up. And to determine that can almost be a possibility. How do you go about determining that factor when making a decision between wild pitch and pass ball?
Well, sometimes you just have to go down and ask. But there are some clues. You know, if a catcher, my pet peeve is that the rule book says that if a pitch hits in the dirt and gets past the catcher, it's always a wild pitch. And the reason that's a pet peeve is, you know, just think back to how many times you've seen with 2 strikes a catcher actually pat his glove on the ground, basically telling the pitcher
as a target,
bounce the pitch, bounce it in the dirt, throw it at the batter's back foot, and then the pitcher will drop it right in the divot that was created, and the catcher doesn't move his feet, and it goes to the backstop, and you've got to call that a wild pitch. And it drives me nuts when that happens, but, you know, it's been that way forever, so who am I to suggest that we should change the rules midstream? But by and large, pass balls are determined by ordinary effort. It is, you know, it is virtually impossible, for instance, for a pitcher to throw a wild pitch that's a called strike.
Right.
And we had one of those last night. The pass balls was on a called strike.
It was a swinging strike.
It may have been, but it was also in the zone if you looked at where the pitch showed up. And then there was another one there was another play that was just extremely difficult for me to call. I even went back after the game and looked at it frame by frame. And that was the play on which Jed Lowry scored from third base. I called it a wild pitch. I had a person from MLB.com dropped a note to our stringer at the game there saying the ball never hit the dirt. Well, you know, that's one of the issues of confusion. If it does hit the dirt, it must be a wild pitch. But if it doesn't hit the dirt, it can still be a wild pitch, as in, for instance, if you throw it over the batter's head to the backstop.
Right.
So it has to hit the dirt in order to be called a wild. But this one, if you go back and watch it frame by frame, it's fascinating. Gary Sanchez has his glove on the ground, and the ball drops down, and on the view from center field, it appears to just disappear. It looks like it just completely disappears. The ball plummets almost 6 inches from frame to frame, which is amazing, and then it's just gone. And it's behind him, and you don't see it touch the ground, and you don't see it pass his glove. But then they showed a shot from the side, and you could see why, because the ball hit home plate. And when it hits home plate, it kind of ricochets. And to me, if the ball hits home plate, that kind of qualifies under the description of a wild pitch. But honestly, I plan to call Elias when I'm off the call with you and ask them to take a look at the play and see what they think, because they may have better quality video than I can get on a laptop, you know, at the game.
Now, how much time before a play can be changed? Do you have
24 hours. We have 24 hours.
Okay. So you do have some time left to check.
And in this case, we could probably do it 2 or 3 days afterwards if we had to, because it winds up only having an effect on the two players involved, the pitcher and the catcher, in terms of their counter stats, because the runs, pass balls can lead to unearned runs, but in this instance, had the pitch not been thrown errantly, the next pitch was hit for a double that would have scored both runners from second and third anyway. So the runs were earned regardless. And the only thing that matters here is whether or not Gary Sanchez gets to enter the record books with 3 pass balls in 1 inning.
Gotcha. Michael?
And I'm sure he would like to avoid that.
What comes to mind with all of this is the pressure that the New York umpires, the umpires in the decision-making room for instant replays, you're going over things back and forth, you're looking at replays, you're taking all the time you need. They've got to do that in 15 seconds. And that must be intense pressure. Time the phone rings.
First, the goal is 2 minutes. Second of all, if you ever had the opportunity to see the room that they work in, it looks like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise on peyote. I mean, it's just, there are more video screens than you can conceive of. And there's a staff there that's working with the 4 umpires. And when they see a play that's even possibility of a challenge, they are immediately assembling and queuing up video from every single camera in the ballpark. And that's a lot more than you realize, because you may have 6 cameras looking at a play on the home TV broadcast, but you may have 6 more cameras looking at it from the visiting broadcast, and then you may have static cameras that belong to the teams that they use to analyze pitch types or to chart things or, whatever they want to do with video analysis. So you may have 10, 12, 15 different views of the play available to you, and you may not have any. It's hard. Sometimes the camera just doesn't give you a good enough shot. I mean, the classic example of that, the absolute perfect example of that, was the very, very first replay challenge in Giants history, which was on opening day, and it was in Colorado, and it was a question of whether or not a runner beat the throw to first. He was called safe, and the only view that was close enough to show it, and in this instance what the umpires look for is they look for the ball to disappear into the glove, and they look for the base to deflect, because they're taught to call close plays by sound, and they don't have sound in New York.
Oh.
You call a bang play by the smack of the ball into the glove versus the kind of scrape of a foot across the bag. And the sound is different.
It takes a while for sound to travel.
Well, at 1,200 miles an hour, it doesn't take very long to go 5 feet.
Yeah, that's true.
Your ears.
Yeah.
But
you even have the numbers of that down pat. Before I forget.
Regardless, let me finish the story. And the problem was that there was no angle that showed the runner's foot actually touching the base, because Brandon Belt had a size 16 feet. And they blocked the view of the camera showing the runner the actual moment the runner made contact. And so the call stood, despite the fact that it pretty much looked like the throw actually beat him. There was no definitive view that could cause the umpires to overturn it. Also, one other quick thing, I don't know if I said this or not, but the goal that they have is for the umpires to make a call on replay within 2 minutes. So they have a little more than 15 seconds.
you mentioned that. Let me ask you before I forget, do you yourself as an official scorer have access? Could you go to those umpires' views and work in cooperation with them to get it right?
Not currently. Currently, what we have is the home team's broadcast and a video recorder. There is discussion about trying to figure out a way to make that feed available to us. One of the problems is that not all scorers are comfortable with the technology that would be involved in having to look at a split screen of 16 views and pick out the one that you want and pull it up and replay it. But
sure,
it seems
few are.
Yeah, it seems to me though that it's pretty
makes
logical. Yeah, but it doesn't take that much training. I mean, you set up an interface where you can, where you can do that with a mouse, or you set up an interface where you can do it with a touch screen or something. But it's
well, what's the expression? Easy
like it's
for
logical.
You. Easy for you, Michael. That doesn't mean it's easy for a lot of people.
Well, I like to think that my brethren in the scoring fraternity are, reasonably sharp characters.
Yes, and I wasn't casting dispersions, but I will say the changing technology and the quickness of the way it changes is not easy to digest for people. It's almost like the frustrations of it almost at times outweigh the benefits that you get from it. So that you have that ability.
Yeah, I mean, people kind of felt that way when cars were brand new too. The wheels broke, and everybody said, well, at least if a buggy breaks down, you can always get on the horse and ride it. So what good are cars?
Good point. Well,
but you have to go through the growing pains.
I'm a dinosaur by nature, and I go through those pains on a daily basis with anything technological. But for me, the good I'm getting is far outweighs the bad. Far outweighs the minor frustrations if you put it all into context. It's a great age to be living in, and so further change down the road, maybe you'll have access to those new new technology that Starship type thing is famous for. Is there someone who runs the entire technical program for MLB? Someone who's in charge, that's the boss, or is it a committee thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there is someone in the office of the commissioner who has some ultimate authority. It might be Chris Marinak, but I'm not sure about that, and I wouldn't want to be quoted on it.
Okay.
He said after saying it out loud.
Now, from this year to last year, have things improved along those lines? Are we getting faster results? Has time been?
I don't have access to the statistics, so all I can do is give you my impression, and my impression is that yes, they are getting decisions quicker.
Okay.
I've had a number of replays come in under a minute this year.
And finally, I'll ask you, were you shocked when you saw stats that say that upwards of 45% of all calls being asked to, for confirmation or overturning, 45 had been held up. 45% of calls have been reversed.
Have been overturned.
Like a lot. Yeah.
No.
Overturned.
No, it doesn't, because, fewer than 1/3 to 1/4 of 1% of all calls that are made are challenged. And so if one call out of 200 is challenged and half of those are overturned, it means that 399 out of 400 are right. I'm okay with that.
Okay. And finally, I will ask you whether or not there is an impending trend to make the strike zone called by cameras. Just the strikes. The umpire would still be there to make sure everything is in order, but the actual ball in the strike zone, this, that, and the other thing.
There are people who want to see that. I'm not one of them.
Okay. Well, you're joined by Hal Bach, who's one of those people that says he wants to see the human element remain. Is that your reasoning for not wanting it?
There's a lot of reasons. First of all, I don't think that part of the game is broken, so I don't think we should do something that radical to try and fix it. Second of all, it is hard for me to envision umpires wanting to stay in the profession for 25 years when they're just standing around at home plate with nothing to do until there's a play at the plate.
Right.
Third of all, these guys get it right 98 to 99% of the time. Again, I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with umpires whose strike zones morph from a rectangle to a trapezoid in the eighth inning. I'm not okay with umpires who suddenly start calling pitches off the plate, strikes late in the game, if they haven't called them before. But if a guy has not been giving the high strike all night and he doesn't give the high strike in the ninth inning, what did you expect? You're here to
right.
As
long as it's consistent,
yep.
and a strike's a strike, by them it's a strike, learn to adjust. The pitcher should throw to what the umpire is going to call a strike.
Absolutely. You know the old rubric, Ralph, that says that the great pitchers, you had to get to them in the first inning? You wanted to get to guys early in the game before they, quote-unquote, settle in.
Right.
Why do you think that is? Do you think great pitchers aren't great in the first inning?
Yeah, they're settling into the umpire.
They are learning the strike zone of the day. That's what they're doing. And if they're smart and they have really good command of the ball, they're testing the strike zone of the day to see where the limits are. So you may see a Greg Maddux go out there and throw 18 balls in a game, and 7 of them will be in the first inning because he's finding out what the umpire is going to give him.
Who's most like Maddux today?
That's a very difficult question, which you should have sprung on me 2 hours ago so I could think about it.
Okay, well, just thought I'd ask her. He's so missed. He's so referred to. There was really nobody like him. And you hear talk with commentators when a pitcher is testing the plate, going a little bit more outside. They gave me that one. Let me get a little bit more. He was superb.
Yeah, and, really, when commentators want to talk about that, he's the wrong pitcher. The name they should use is Tom Glavine. Because, there was no better example of that than Tom Glavine and Eric Gregg in the playoff game.
Yeah, I remember that, yes.
And Livan Hernandez, for that matter. Livan, what did he strike out 14 that day, and 12 of them on pitches off the plate?
Yes, it's Miami.
Something like that.
Him coming up big against Miami. I want to talk Rodriguez again. This guy continues to impress me. I want to ask you how he could have fallen through the cracks, developed late. What it is that who was it? Minnesota had him.
Yes. As I think I said a couple of times on the air.
What did the Giants see? Was it scouting? Was it? Tell me how it came about that kind of talent could have been left open like that.
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, I think Henry Schulman said it best when he sent out a tweet to Minnesota fans in June, and he said, "Hey, Twins fans, have you decided which street the World Series parade is going to be on? Because if you've got 23 pitchers on your roster better than Derek Rodriguez, nobody's beating you." But the fact of the matter is that Rodriguez was one of those guys who benefit from a change in the a change in the collective bargaining agreement many years ago now. It's probably been 2 decades or longer. He was a 6-year minor league free agent. Mm-hmm. And 6-year minor league free agents have been in the past, kind of forgotten about people. Your club had its opportunity, and you didn't show them what you needed to keep them interested in you, and away you go. So, these things can happen. I mean, Alan Hansen falls into that same category. And the Dodgers seem to be pretty good at signing people like that also. If you check MLB.com,
I think Max Muncy came from the A's, from the Dodgers.
He came from the A's organization, and if you put all of his hits together when he was with the A's, they equal about 3 of his home runs this year. There's not a soul in the A's organization that thought that Max Muncy was going to be a 30 home run guy. Anybody who tells you that they knew that is lying to you.
Right.
But if you go look on MLB.com, my friend Chris Haft wrote a nice piece after he and I had a discussion about the fact that the Giants front office may be the very best in baseball at identifying 6-year minor league free agents. And if you think about it, that's a version of Moneyball. Another team has drafted them. Another team has paid the bonus. Another team has developed them. And now you get to step in, and they're minor leaguers, so you can sign them to a minor league deal and see if they make the team. And if they do, well, there you go. And, the Giants have Alan Hansen, they have Derek Rodriguez, and they have Derek Holland, all of whom fit that criterion. All of these are guys who are out there on the beach waiting for somebody to call.
Alan Hansen's a good example of, didn't somebody see this guy's fielding ability before letting him go? We talked about.
Oh yeah, he was with two major league organizations. He was drafted and mostly developed by the Pirates. They gave up on him, and then the White Sox had him, and they gave up on him. And as much as the White Sox have been looking for talent in the last couple of years, I'm sure they're kicking themselves right now.
Oh, he made 2 or 3 plays in one game. I think it was the final game they played the Mets earlier in the week. It was at least 3, not 2, but I can remember vividly 3. One him coming in, one him over in the hole at shortstop, one him on the second base side. He is phenomenal, and what a utility infielder he will make for years to come.
Well, and if you look at those plays that he made, it demonstrates one other thing. He's got a very high baseball IQ and a natural baseball IQ, because one of the plays that he made that many fans will miss is that he ran a deke on Todd Frazier that kept him at second base. And then on the very next play, there was a ground ball into the hole that he managed to corral and immediately fired to third base and caught Frazier rounding the bag.
Yes. He had no play any other way. He was going in that direction. You rarely see that play.
You know who was the master of that play? The master of that play was Omar Vizquel.
I can see that. We even talked on some thread the other day of who was the greatest fielding shortstop of all time, and I think we both mentioned him.
Yes.
We had the privilege in San Francisco of watching him, and he was well past his prime, but still his arm, he could get rid of the ball unbelievably quick. He had the quickest hands for a shortstop, and wow, good ball, real great ball player. Will he go into the Hall? Is he appreciated enough in the world of baseball where he'll go into the Hall of Fame quickly?
Well, the problem that he has is a guy named Jeter. Jeter's going to get into the Hall on his first ballot.
That's
and they're not going to elect two shortstops. They elect about one shortstop a decade, it seems like. So Jeter's going to get in the Hall, and that's going to mean that Jeter and Ripken and Larkin are all in the Hall, and that is going to start to set an offensive standard for shortstops that it's going to be tough for almost anybody else to rise to.
Good points. Very good points.
Does he deserve to be there?
Are they both eligible the first year?
Well, they're both
on the
eligible
same ballot?
whatever their first year is, but I don't think they'll be on the same ballot. I think Omar may be on the ballot a year or so ahead of Jeter.
Oh, well, maybe he could sneak in that way because, like I say, you can't come up with anybody of his time that was better, and that's how you have to judge it. Who was the best of their time, that they played year after year.
And then it's going to get even more complicated because Alex Rodriguez will show up on that ballot very soon, too.
Right, and you're bringing the other stuff into it in conjunction.
Yeah, but see, A-Rod has done what a lot of these other guys have not done. He's rehabilitated his image by going on TV and being, congenial and affable and, knowledgeable and, not, never, going out and pleading his case. So,
he's a great analyst. He really is a great analyst.
Yeah, and that's going to stand him in good stead, I think.
Yeah. Sadly, that a player should be judged by that, making it a popularity contest or a personality thing. But he should obviously be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He case could be made greatest shortstop ever, correct?
Case could certainly be made that he was the greatest all-around shortstop ever, yeah. People forget, that he had a 40-40
He had the better shortstop skills when he came to the Yankees than Jeter did, and we talked about this once or twice before. If it were a dice baseball game or a computer sim game, he'd be a shortstop and Jeter would be a third. But that comes down to taking over the King of New York, all of that, Jeter's pride, the Yankee image, blah, 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 blah.
Well, and the biggest blah of all in there you didn't mention, which is captain. No other baseball team has captains. The Yankees not only have captains, but when you're anointed a captain of the Yankees, you achieve a status slightly higher than the mayor.
Yeah, well, it would have been a good time for the good of the team if the captain would have said, "Hey, look, I'm now a third baseman. We got the best."
Well, that's what a captain is supposed to do, but
exactly.
It didn't happen, and I don't want to disparage either of them, and I particularly don't want to disparage Jeter, who I think deserves the entire reputation that he has as a player. I can't imagine anyone else, including Omar, being in foul territory on the first baseline of a playoff game to catch an errant relay throw and backhand flip to the catcher to retire a runner and propel his team into the next round of the playoffs.
Slide, Jambi, slide.
Yeah, slide, Jeremy.
Yes, Jeremy Jambi. I don't want to confuse him with his bro. No question that broke the A's heart this year. Reach across the bay. You've been over. You're generally at AT&T. What do you make of this year's A's?
Well, I'll tell you what. If they manage to actually get past that wild card game and get into the playoffs, it's going to make an awful lot of people question an awful lot of contracts that have been written for starting pitchers, because they literally have none.
They've been decimated twice.
Well,
decimated. They rebuild, and guys keep getting hurt.
They have five starters who had Tommy John surgery this year. 5.
Let alone others that have been on the DL and have come back, been on the DL again, come back. You get guys like Cahill and Anderson as fill-ins. They pulled Jackson out of their back pocket. Signing him was amazing. The guy they got, Fear.
Mike Fiers.
He pitched last night. He was a godsend for them. I think they should have gotten Gio Gonzalez. It really would have helped.
Well, the thing you have to remember is they have 5 pitchers who had Tommy John surgery. And what that means isn't just to have 5 pitchers who aren't there. It means they've got a lot of guys coming back. And so you want to be careful about how much you decimate your farm system, to go get people that will block the kids you're trying to develop and that you're waiting for to come back off of their rehab.
Yeah, well, I'm the worst prognosticator. About a week before the trade deadline, they had yet again another guy go, and I think this time it was
Minaya, yeah.
Okay, he goes down, and he was the number 1 starter all year, and it was just about the time that the trade deadline was going down, and I thought that they should be sellers. I thought that they should sell Lowry, and I misjudged them entirely. I never thought they'd get as much out of Jackson as they've gotten, and I thought at that point they should have started picking up some prospects because I thought they were dead. Now it looks like they've proven me wrong. They're right in it. They played good ball against Houston, against the Yankees. I'm just shocked.
Since the 1st of June, they have been on a pace that would, over a season, project to 110 wins.
Wow.
They're 51-21 in their last 72 games.
Yeah, and I talked about their center fielder. I can't pronounce his name. Laureano. Oh my God! Can this guy go get it in center? He's fast and he has a gun in the outfield.
And that's your scouting department, because they got him out of the Houston organization in a deal a couple of years ago.
Right.
I can't remember which one of their many trade deadline dumping things where everybody said, "Oh, just what the A's need: more prospects." You know, they've got the greatest minor league organization in the world and no major leaguers. Well, here they are. They're coming up.
Yeah, and
and I'll tell you what. If I were the Giants, I would be knocking on Billy's door as soon as the season's over to see if they could pry Dustin Fowler out of that group.
I was thinking about him.
Where is he going to play? He's got no place to play.
He didn't seize the moment, and this guy did. He had the chance, and that's what I like about baseball. You never know who's coming up in the minors. You got the surprises, but this guy is a ball player, and he's going to be around for a long time. Kudos to Billy Beane, huh?
And the developmental staff of that organization.
Right.
And if you look at it, the Giants have recognized that they had some issues with the developmental staff they had, and they put David Bell in charge at the start of this year. And we'll see how that goes, because they've got some very solid young players too. I mean, everybody said 2 years ago that organization had nothing. It was bereft. It was, an empty cupboard. And that empty cupboard has produced Suarez, and that empty cupboard has produced Ray Black, and that empty cupboard has produced a couple of other guys in the bullpen, Moranta, and it has produced Derek Rodriguez, and it has produced Chris Shaw, and it has produced Mac Williamson, who did not get to show how well he was performing because he got hurt very early after he was coming up. This guy still, he only played for a couple of weeks, and he has 2 of the 3 longest hit home runs by the team this year.
Is he playing again, or did they bring him up in September when the September rosters were expanded?
No, he's still dealing with the effects of his concussion. He's still got the headaches.
Not a good sign. I come to think of Matheny as an example of someone who was felled by concussions early in a career.
And that's exactly why the Giants are so cautious.
Yeah. Good that they can be. What was interesting with the Giants this past week was the new kids that they brought up. You mentioned Shaw. He was one of those whose parents and or family, girlfriend, this, that, and the other thing, in the stands and being interviewed and on camera with their debuts. I think that's a beautiful part of the game. I think it personalizes these guys. I'll always remember their first at-bats because of that. Giants are doing a good job.
We'll see how things go. It feels like they are making some progress towards getting younger and getting better. It's a fine line that you have to walk. When you win 3 in 5 years, there's no roadmap for that. No other National League team has done that. And certainly no other National League team has done that in a salary cap era. And, there are guys who were just absolute fan favorites, and they would have been literally filleted in public if they had not maintained people like Hunter Pence on the team. And the risk you run when you keep a lot of your popular people is that some of them will age out before their contracts do.
Yeah. Sorry to say that the Longoria thing didn't work out, not so much for what Longoria has produced, but for what they had to give up. Duffy, Arroyo over the last couple of years. I think they lost a lot with Duffy that you can't quantify.
Duffy was not involved.
In that one, I think Arroyo was involved in this one. Duffy they gave up to get Matt Moore.
Yes.
Which in itself didn't turn out so great, but it took Duffy a couple of years of being hurt to come back to form too. But Duffy had
and you say it didn't turn out so great, but I bet you I could find you 50,000 Giants fans who wish that Matt Moore had been allowed to finish the game against the Cubs in the playoffs.
Okay. All right. I'm blanking on that right now. Why don't you
don't recall the ninth inning bullpen meltdown when nobody could get an out?
Oh yes.
Matt Moore went 8 innings and held the Cubs to something like 2 hits.
Yes, that's right about the time that pitch count was taken over in determining how far a pitcher can go.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know that pitch count was involved in it. It was just, he'd gone 8 full, and you have a bullpen, and you figure when you've got, what was it, a 3-run lead going into the 9th inning, you don't really expect that your bullpen is going to be completely unable to register an out. And that's essentially what happened. If you remember, the Cubs rallied for, I think, 4 or 5 runs in the 9th inning.
Okay. You mentioned a name a few minutes ago, speaking of relief pitchers, and I'd like to know, is he in line to be the closer, Miranda?
Miranda?
Great with names.
Yeah, Miranda, Miranda is...
Yeah, the Miranda, I should know that one. I should not know about the Miranda thing. I have the right to use my brain. I just don't choose to do so. But Miranda...
I don't know if Miranda's in line to be a closer or not. I mean, they've still got 2 more years of Melanson. They like Will Smith. But I will tell you this. The one guy in that bullpen that Bruce Bochy looks to bring in a difficult situation, guys on base and nobody out, guys on base and 1 out. Miranda's his first choice. He's
got that closer look. You wouldn't want to fight him in a back alley.
Well, it looks to me like he just borrowed Pablo Sandoval's body when Pablo went to the DL.
Right, but yes, very good one. Which brings to mind, speaking of relief pitchers, he gave him some innings. Sandoval.
I'm sorry, you're going to say that again. You broke up.
Oh, I was just going to say that it brings to mind, speaking of relief pitchers and Sandoval, he gave them some innings.
He gave them good innings.
Yeah.
I mean, unlike the general trend this year to use position players who then go out and kind of short sheet the bed, he knew what he was doing out there, and he had he threw 2 pitches effectively and got some outs. And as he pointed out, he's got a 3rd pitch that he didn't even show anybody yet.
Yeah. Well, as a Met fan, I must say that the poster boy for bringing in position players and short-sheeting the bed was Reyes. Jose Reyes came in, gives up 2 home runs, and hits 2 home runs in the same game. So it's a crazy game of baseball. It's a crazy game of baseball to me when a team goes into a game with 3 position players on the bench and 12 relief pitches.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about there.
Yeah. So the baseball is going to come back to a balanced state before you know it.
Well, we'll see. Like I said,
throwing that out there because everything comes back to the middle in politics, and it seems. And
theoretically, but it will be very interesting if the A's actually show some postseason success with, what's essentially going to be a 14-man bullpen and 3 starters.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, you look at what they have been doing this year. I mean, the Rays have gotten a lot more notoriety because they've been using bullpen guys as openers, they call them. They don't call them starting pitchers. They call them openers. But they still have a rotation, and they bring rotation guys in, let's say after the first inning. If a team has loaded up 3 left-handed hitters, they might use a left-handed arm out of the bullpen for the first inning and then bring their real starter in the second inning and hope that he gives them 5 or 6 and carries it to the back end of the bullpen. And I understand.
With the idea that a pitcher shouldn't be facing a team the third time through the lineup.
Well, there's that, and I'm not sure that's necessarily accurate or necessary. But what I will say is that, it does make sense if a team's going to load up opposite-handed hitters in a lineup that you start the game with a lefty to face 3 left-handed hitters, or you start the game with a really difficult reliever like Sergio Romo if you've got 3 right-handed power hitters near the top of your lineup. And then you give your starter the opportunity to start kind of, in the middle of the order or a little bit further down and establish himself. And, if he's effective and he goes through the lineup twice, you might already be in the 6th or 7th inning. And now you can go to the back end of your bullpen that's pretty much locked down.
Michael, could you see it being a 3-3-3 situations with not just the A's and the Rays, but with all teams in baseball?
Well, I don't think other teams – I don't think anybody's going to change that philosophy midstream or, for the playoffs. So, but it's possible.
No, I don't mean this year, but I mean, say the A's have success with it, and the Rays have been having their success. The Rays could win like 85 games, 90 games.
The Rays and White Sox are the 2 hottest teams in baseball right now.
Right.
And that's gone largely unnoticed by most people.
White Sox especially. You're informing me. I haven't been looking at the White Sox lately.
Well, I'm not sure what they've done this week, but on Labor Day they had won 14 of 17.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Anything you see coming up this week with the Giants that's interesting, that's noteworthy? Anybody coming back from injuries?
No, I think we're going to see probably a little more usage of younger players. It will be interesting to see how much playing time they give the young player that they just acquired from the Yankees, who is, in the Ben Zobrist kind of mold. He's he's an infielder who can also play the outfield. He can play all around the field. He hit 15 home runs in the minor leagues this year, and he's 27 of 31 stealing bases. So, there's a guy who's definitely a contact hitter, more than a power hitter, as he describes himself, and who's got the flexibility to play pretty much all the way around the infield. And it'll be interesting to see how much playing time he gets.
Okay.
He was the return for Andrew McCutcheon. Boy, he sure seems to have regressed. Boy, I mean, he just, I mean, he started out the year with 2 home runs on opening day, and he's just sort of gone downhill almost nonstop since then. It's hard to understand.
Yeah. One of the guys that I root for, he's St. John's kid, and too bad.
Well, he's one of the guys that I root for too, but, you know, you can root for somebody, but you also have to be realistic and say, you know, that they're just, you know, I mean, there's no power there this year. There's no gap-to-gap power, even let alone home run power. And I don't know if you watched him against the Mets, but it was rolling over and hitting ground balls time and time again. And you'd look up when the throw was made to first, and he was halfway down the line. I don't know if he's still nursing an injury or if he's that despondent over his inability to hit this year. But this is a kid who, in my estimation, should be a 280 hitter every year. He doesn't have the power of a Chase Utley, but he's a Chase Utley type of hitter. And, you know, for him to be languishing in the 220s just doesn't make any sense at all to me. There has to be
I did watch him
story
against the Mets, and I saw the irony of me wanting him for the last 3 or 4 years for the Mets, and because they've really struggled in their infield, especially defensively. And I look up, and the Mets have this kid, McNeil, to go with Rosario at short. They've got a double play combination out of this world, and Panic is struggling. So who can tell with baseball? Just have to appreciate what you have today, because it's my feeling that injuries may have taken their toll on Panic.
Yeah, that's probably what it is, and that's why I said I think there's a story we're not being told. You know, he looks like the way he's played the last couple of months looks like it would be reasonable to expect an announcement in October that he's undergone some kind of cleanup surgery somewhere.
Well, yeah, right. Either a knee or a hip. Speaking of hips, Posey.
Yeah. He's got one.
Do you think he'll come back as a catcher? Do you think he'll come back as a catcher, or do you think that they're in line to move him to another position?
Look, I've said this to people for 5 years now. Everybody wants to, move him to first base. He can play more often. Move him to first. This is not just the face of the franchise. This is one of the faces of Major League Baseball. And this is a catcher who has taken you to 3 world championships. And this is a little bit like Jeter at shortstop. You let Buster Posey tell you when he's not going to catch anymore.
Okay.
And that time ain't anytime soon.
All right. Did the surgery go well?
Supposedly it went great. You know, but what do we know? Now, you know, if Joey Bart shows up in 2020 with a 30 home run minor league season under his belt and crushes the ball in spring training, maybe Buster goes to the team and says, you know, it might be time. Give him a shot. I'll play first base for the first month. We'll see how he does. And, you know, if you need me to go back behind the plate, I'll do it. But unless and until something like that happens, I just don't see them moving him out from behind home plate. They are still, because of that ballpark, they are committed to being a defense and pitching-oriented team. And he's one of the best defenders behind the plate in the last 30 years. And, you know, he's
the catcher of our time, for sure.
I mean,
and
I
he
think
has
he's
come
the
back
best at calling the game. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the ankle injury, to come back from that, you can't question the fact that he'll do what it takes to get back from the hip.
No, and, you know, it was I think it was a very selfless act on his part to say that he wanted to do the surgery now and have be a month closer to coming back rather than try and gut it out for the rest of the year.
All right, Michael. Thank you, sir, for a great show. We'll do it again next week.
All right. I'll be here.
Thank you. Stay healthy, my friend.
I will do my best. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you down the baseball road. Adios. This has been a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.